Hey you and welcome. My name is Mike and in this video we got right here, we got a weird one. Was Sherri Papini kidnapped? Really though? In 2016, Sherri Papini was out jogging about a mile from her home in California and she claims she was kidnapped by two Hispanic women. Now she was released a few weeks later, unharmed, thankfully. But a lot of things in her story don't make sense. Like at all. So it's definitely worth taking a look at. So let's. "34-year-old Sherri Papini was living a pretty sweet life with her husband, Keith Papini, and her two kids in Redding, California. On November 2nd, 2016, Sherri told her husband Keith she'd pick up the kids from daycare later on and was heading out on one of her usual jogs. She then went out on a trail nearby her home, failed to pick up her kids from daycare and failed to return home at all. Keith returned home from his job at Best Buy. The house was empty, which was unusual. She hadn't returned home and she hadn't picked up the kids. He got his mother to pick them up, but he knew pretty quickly something was wrong. He began to panic, knowing something had happened to his wife. And then he used the Find My iPhone tracker to locate his wife's phone. He found it about a mile away, and he said he also found hair there. He said it was ripped from her head. Now, the police would later say that her phone, her earphones were also found there, and bits of her hair seemed to have been purposely placed there. They weren't just like thrown out, they were like placed particularly, like her earphones. Presumably she was wearing them out running. They were like found tied up, you know, like in a loop or whatever, the way you would if you were putting them in your pocket. Which is weird. So, Keith didn't know what happened to her. She went for a jog and seemingly never came back. She could still be out there. Apart from finding her phone, earphones, and a bit of her hair, that was it. No other sign of his wife, Sherri. He then called the police.
Yeah, so I just got home from work, and my wife wasn't there, which is unusual, and my kids should have been there by now from, like, daycare. So I was like, oh, maybe she went on a walk. I couldn't find her, so I called the daycare to see what time she picked up the kids. The kids were never picked up, so I got freaked out, so I hit, like, the Find My iPhone app thing, and it said that it showed her phone, like, at our end of our driveway. We don't have really good service. Okay. Not the end of our driveway, but the end of our street. So I just drove down there, and I saw her phone with her headphones. I found her phone, and it's got, like, hair ripped out of it, like, in the headphones. So I'm, like, totally freaking out, thinking, like, somebody, like, grabbed her.
So where are you at right now?
I'm at the end of the driveway where, I'm at the Old Oregon Trail and Sunrise where they meet, because that's right where I found her phone, on the ground. You're telling me that something happened to her, is the way I'm looking at it. There's, like, then there was hair, like, in the headphones. Like, it got ripped off, or, like, they grabbed
Yeah, no, I understand.
Okay, I'm sorry. I know you're trying to keep me calm, but obviously.
Yeah.
Police began a series of searches for the missing woman, using scent dogs, who, weirdly enough, didn't find anything near where her phone was found. Helicopters even circled the local area. They distributed flyers and offered rewards for any information leading to her discovery, but got nothing.
Last night, at about 10 minutes to 6 p.m., Keith Papini reported his wife, Sherri, as a missing person with suspicious circumstances. When he returned home, he found that his wife was not home and the children had not been picked up from their daycare. Mr. Papini used Find My iPhone app and he found his wife's cell phone. Ms. Sherri Papini was last seen on Sunrise Drive at about 2 p.m. yesterday, jogging and or walking alone, which is normal for her. The deputies last night, when they responded, they conducted a search of the area and canvassed the area with local neighbors and residents there. And they worked throughout the night and into the early morning hours, along with Shasta County Sheriff investigators as well.
And this case received major news coverage. Detectives interviewed Sherri's family, friends, and neighbors. A $50,000 reward was offered for information. Keith, not too happy with how the investigation was going, too slow for him, he set up a GoFundMe. The money was supposed to pay for 2 private investigators to get to the bottom of whatever happened to her, and it raised almost $50,000. pretty decent.
Bring her home. Bring her home. Just bring her home. Bring her home safe. There's a $50,000 reward. Bring her home.
Now, I just want to point out at this stage that although Keith, he's questioned by police, he did pass a polygraph exam as well, but the detectives never quite ruled him out. They always felt that Keith knew just a little bit more, and he was letting on about what happened to Sherri. The abduction theory is really what everybody was going on. That she was out jogging, she was kidnapped, and whoever took her whisked her down Old Mexico way. In 1998, in fact, a 16-year-old girl, Tara Smith, was abducted while out jogging in the local area, and she's never been found. A man named Cameron Gamble inserted himself into this case, claiming to be an expert hostage negotiator, and saying he had the backing of an anonymous donor offering $50,000 in exchange for Sherri's safe return.
An individual who knew me in the community for speaking on specifically human trafficking a few years prior to this, she had called and asked, she was a mutual friend of the family, and asked if I could come in and just consult with the family and just kind of give my opinion as to what I thought had taken place.
I've covered far too many of these cases, and you really do get to a point you see with the families where they're willing to try anything, and they tried various non-traditional approaches. Your name came up.
There's a couple things going on here. One, I was the only one willing to go public and put my reputation on the line.
He would turn out to be just full of shit, which really goes to show that even in the worst of situations, there's always some asshole out there trying to make a name for themselves. So the search continued, but it didn't look good. She'd been gone quite a while. Until she wasn't.
Stunning turn in the case of a missing California mom who was found on Thanksgiving morning 3 weeks after she disappeared on an afternoon run. ABC's Kana Whitworth is on the scene in Redding, California for us this morning. Good morning, Kana.
Paula, good morning to you. So officials are working on a very vague description as they search for the people responsible for Sherri Papini's abduction.
Out of nowhere, at around 4:30 a.m. on Thanksgiving Day, November 24th, 2016, 3 weeks after her disappearance, Sherri Papini was found wandering along County Road 17 near Interstate 5 in Yolo County, which was around 150 miles from her home. She was found in reasonably good health, thankfully alive, which in itself is rare in these situations. The footage from when she was found is strange. She's running back and forth. Weird. She'd been bound, with clasps around her wrists and a chain around her waist, and she showed signs of physical abuse, a broken nose, bruises, and a brand burned into her shoulder. Her hair had been hacked off, or, well, rather, that's what her husband said. The investigator just said it had been cut. And she was emaciated, and she would claim that it was 2 Latina women who had kidnapped her, and they either wore masks or blindfolded Sherri the entire time she was in captivity, so she couldn't really identify them.
Very vague description.
The Shasta County Sheriff's Office Major Crimes Unit continues to dedicate all of its resources to identifying and apprehending those individuals who are responsible for the abduction of Sherri Papini. Over the last 2 days, major crime detectives have interviewed Sherri at an undisclosed location. The interviews were very intense for both the investigators and for Sherri, due to her having to relive this traumatic event. She was cooperative and courageous during the interviews. During the interviews with Sherri, she described the sequence of events to the best of her recollection. Remember that she was held against her will and was isolated. There's still a lot of unknowns about her assailants. However, we commend Sherri for her efforts to sit down with our detectives and provide a statement.
She claimed that while she was out jogging, they had appeared and thrown a bag over her head and whisked her away to some unknown location. But she couldn't really remember much of her kidnapping. The last thing she could remember was her captors kicking her out of a van and then driving away.
People, we pushed you!
Now, she was gone for 3 weeks, so you would think she would remember something that would help find these people, but she couldn't. Now also, a lot of this information was released by Keith, Sherri's husband, not the police, the police weren't happy he was saying all this as it was, obviously subject of an ongoing investigation. But it also means that we just have to take Keith's word for a lot of Sherri's story. The police never really told too much about what happened. Sherri was unable to remember what exactly the vehicle had looked like, anything about the women's facial features, and could give no details of where she'd been held. Almost like it never happened. And so the police didn't really have anything to go on. No suspects, no motives, she was kidnapped for no reason whatsoever, no clues, and no real evidence.
I think it was an Asian gang or something. I saw someone, he looked Asian, and he was speaking another language. I'm pretty sure it was Asian.
She was also kidnapped by 2 women, which is unusual. Kidnappers usually tend to be male. So they didn't really have anything. Well, actually no, they had one thing to go on. They found DNA on her. Now when she reappeared, she wasn't wearing the clothes she was wearing when she disappeared. And there was 2 sets of DNA found on that clothing. One from a male and one from a female. Which was weird because she said it was 2 women who took her. It wasn't Keith. And when they ran those DNA sets through the database, they brought up fuck all.
Given the nature of all this new shit, you know, this could be a lot more complex. I mean, it's not just, it might not be just such a simple, you know?
Another thing is that Sherri insisted she'd gotten into a fight with her abductors when she was kidnapped, and that she had badly injured her foot with a cut or something. However, her feet seemed fine. She had no evidence of this cut she supposedly sustained. So, some parts of her story don't really add up. After Sherri returned home, the family essentially shut down. She wasn't even seen for another year. The family essentially became very reclusive.
But questions remain. Once abducted, where did Sherri go?
I don't have specific information as location or locations where she may have been taken.
What evidence was recovered in Yolo County last week?
Again, I'm not going to get into the specific details of all the evidence. We have received the evidence back from Yolo County, and then we'll be turning it over to the California Department of Justice for processing.
There's also the question of why anyone would take her.
We still do not have a motive as to the reason why Miss Papini was taken. We do not know if she was a specific target or if this was a random abduction.
And then a few things began to trickle out.
New shit has come to light. And shit, man.
One was that, although she was apparently taken while jogging, she wasn't a jogger. Her neighbors said, nope, I've lived here for years, never seen her out running the trails. Weird. That one time she decides to go jogging, she gets kidnapped. Shit luck.
There are some bizarre new details emerging tonight in the case of Sherri Papini, the mom who vanished for 3 weeks only to be found tied up on the side of a country road. Her husband is now speaking out about the appalling condition in which his wife was found and about the rumors that the whole thing may have been a hoax.
Sherri also has a history of mental illness. In 2003, Sherri attempted to harm herself and blame her mother on it. Sherri's sister claimed that Sherri once kicked in her back door. Her dad also claimed that she vandalized his home. And the lead investigator in this case has kind of said, or well, hinted really, I guess is better, that he doesn't think Sherri was abducted at all.
She kidnapped herself.
When a communications officer from the sheriff's department was questioned about the Papini case, she replied, I don't know if the words ruled out can be used, when asked if authorities suspected a hoax. However, the Shasta County Sheriff later said, since speaking to Papini based on information we've received, we believe her. We believe that this was an abduction. One theory initially believed by the Shasta County Police is that Sherri simply tried to skip town and then lost her nerve. She just wanted to leave, start over, but changed her mind and made up kidnapping to cover herself. Or, it's also been released that she was in contact with a man in Michigan, and they were in an online, texting relationship. Sherri and the man had been messaging each other for months prior to her disappearance, and he did visit California from Michigan a few days before she went missing. However, he wasn't in Redding, California on the day of her disappearance. Now, Keith didn't know about this, Apparently, this guy's name was saved under a woman's name in Sherri's phone. And it's also led to theories that this may not have been the first time she's done this, and that she may have been having a number of affairs. The kidnapping was made up to cover the fact that she ran away with somebody else, but then got cold feet. Or was this simply a case of attention seeking? Possibly, although Sherri's remained reclusive since it happened, so she hasn't said much if she was looking for attention. She's refusing to get it. Though I think we're overlooking the fact that she returned exactly on the morning of Thanksgiving. So I think the obvious answer is she just missed turkey. Or she did try and run away with somebody else, got cold feet, and invented a kidnapping story to come back and something like that. Or again, there is the one I guess I really haven't spoken about, but is the fact that she really could have been kidnapped, which is obviously a horrific ordeal. And I don't want to victim blame here, but I'm not sure if she was kidnapped, because there's just a lot of things in the story that just don't make sense. But who knows? The two women who took her, they've never been found, if they exist. The GoFundMe money they made like $49,000. The Papinis happily live with that. It's never been revealed what the money was used for, so the GoFundMe was in fact shut down, but a lot of commenters are asking for their money back as they have their suspicions, and well, some people aren't best pleased. Detectives are still looking for anyone who may have information about the Sherri Papini case, but I think at this stage they might as well be looking for Bigfoot. Maybe it was Bigfoot, he's in that part of America. She does have a history of attention seeking, and she is thought to have been maybe seeing other guys, or at least one guy, during when she went missing. But she also may have been genuinely kidnapped, which, as I said, is a horrific ordeal, I can only imagine. But there's just a lot of things in this case that don't really make sense. So, who knows? What do you think really happened to Sherri Papini? Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you'd like to watch some more of my videos, please work away. And I will see you, as always, real soon in the next video. Take care of yourselves. Mike out.